Even though I like a lot of what Ryan Poles has done for the Chicago Bears this offseason, there's one position he absolutely has to address in the coming weeks if he wants the Bears team to be competitive in 2023. What's going on, guys? I'm back with another Chicago Bears offseason discussion video, which I'll be doing in the next few weeks and months as we wait for training camp to start. Training camp starts at the end of July, so we have a couple more months until that starts, so not much Bears needs to talk about right now, but we could see a free agent signing or a trade at one position where I feel like the Bears absolutely have to attack it, and I think that Ryan Poles will attack it pretty soon because in the NFL draft, he did not draft a single player at that position, and obviously you guys know I'm talking about defensive end, edge rusher. Right now, the Chicago Bears at edge are extremely weak. That's our weakest position on the roster, without a doubt. If you look at our edge rushers right now, so we have DeMarcus Walker, who had 7 sacks with the Tennessee Titans last year, but before that, he did not have, many sacks any year of his career. So he's a guy that's coming off, one really fantastic year, but we'll have to see if he can keep that up with the Chicago Bears. I'm pretty optimistic about it because there's a lot to like in his frame and his physicality and in his athletic traits, but again, a guy that only produced for 1 year, so it is a little bit risky and relying on this guy to be a full-time starter, but that's one full-time starter we have. On the other side, then, we have either Trevis Gipson, Rasheem Green, or Dominique Robinson starting on the other side, which I'm not sure which of them are going to win that job as of now, but either of those guys winning the job as of now doesn't reassure me that much, right? Because Trevis Gipson, he's been here for a while now. Last year, he had a pretty down year. Before that, he was actually a decent rotational guy, but so far he's not shown to be a full-time adequate starter at defensive end. If you look at Dominique Robinson, this is a guy that was super raw coming out of college, a guy that barely knew how to play the position, and a guy that needed a developmental period to grow in his technique playing defensive end. And last year he actually got forced into much more playing time than we planned for him to play, because early on last year in a rotational role he actually looked pretty decent when he only had to come in on like obvious passing downs. First game of the year, Dominique Robinson actually had 1.5 sacks, I believe, but after that, I don't think he recorded a single sack because he was very one-dimensional as a pass rusher. So when he got figured out, everybody knew how to lock him up. So he's another guy that could take a next step forward in year 2, but it is risky to rely on Dominique Robinson becoming a full-time starter for you when he looked absolutely horrible last year. So just being realistic, I don't think you should be relying on that happening, even though it would be nice if Dominique Robinson did take a next step forward in his development and became a lot better this year. I think he will be better this year, but I'm not sure if he's going to be good enough to be a starting level defensive end in the NFL. And then we also signed Rasheem Green, a guy that's been a rotational edge rusher for the most part with the Seattle Seahawks. He did start 16 games 1 year in which he did have 6.5 sacks, but aside from that year, he did not start every single game of any other season. So another guy that as a rotational backup, a guy that you plug in every once in a while on maybe on like third down to get a fresh guy in, he could be pretty good for you. But as a starter, I'm not sure if I trust him to do that because he's never done that really besides for 1 year. So right now there's a lot of projection being involved in the Chicago Bears defensive end room. Okay, you're relying on guys that have never stepped up to be starters full time to be starters for you full time, which is a very, very risky proposition coming off of a year in which Jaquan Brisker, our safety, led the team in sacks. So I did expect Ryan Poles to address that position in the NFL draft, but he chose not to at any point in the draft. Okay, we did not even do like a round 5 or like a round 6 or even like a round 7 flyer on like a developmental prospect. We did not add a single defensive end in the draft, which shocked me a lot, to be honest. But when you go back and look at the guys that were available, I think all the top tier edge rushers in this class, for the most part, they were taken by our pick, at pick number 53. So I'm sure Ryan Poles tried to trade up, but the price maybe was just way too much. So guys like Isaiah Foskey, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Derek Hall, BJ Ojulari, Nolan Smith, obviously, like all the top guys were off the board for the most part by our pick. Even guys like Keon White were off the board too. So I think Ryan Poles did get forced into a situation where he cannot just draft an edge rusher for the sake of drafting one. Okay, you have to actually like the player you're selecting and not just draft them because you have a need there. So he did not get the chance to draft any edge rusher. He stayed disciplined, but I feel like that might have been intentional because there's so many good edge rushers still available in free agency right now. Okay, even though free agency started in March, middle of March, there's still 4 of the top guys that would have been available back in March. They're still available right now at edge. So lucky for the Bears, we could sign any of these guys, and these guys could be immediate starters for us next year, even though they're getting signed to our team super late. And there's also one trade option I want to talk about too, which I don't think is super realistic, but it's a guy that maybe might be available because he had his 5th-year option declined, and a guy that if the Bears want to sacrifice some future draft capital, he could be a perfect fit with the Chicago Bears. But let's talk about my first guy, the first guy I have on my list, and obviously it's going to be free agent Yannick Ngakoue, who was on my free agency wish list in early February, okay? I wanted this guy in my mock offseason video that I made. I had the Bears signing this guy to a 3-year contract, I believe, and he's not going to get that many years now. Now it's only going to be probably a 1-year or 2-year deal at the very most, because all the guys that are available right now, their value is super low because multiple teams passed on these guys at this point, so they're not going to get as much money as they were asking for maybe a couple months ago. So we could probably get Yannick on like a 1-year $10 million deal with incentives, which will be fine for a team that has so much cap space still. Okay, we still have about 30 million in cap, which we still have to sign the rookie class, but even after signing the rookie class, we will have about 18 to 20 million in cap, which is more than enough to sign Yannick on a 1-year deal. And Yannick is a pass rushing specialist. Okay, he's not going to provide you with much in run defense, so that's one area where he's going to be weak. He's not going to be a good run defender for the Bears, but as a pass rushing specialist, the guy that you put on the field on third down, on obvious passing downs when you're up in the game, he knows how to get to the quarterback. Okay, every single year of his career with multiple different teams, he's produced double-digit sacks almost all of those years. Okay, with the Jaguars, almost double-digit sacks every single year. He had 8, 12 after that, 9.5, 8, then, splitting the year with 2 teams. He had 8 in 2020. With the Raiders, he had 10 sacks. With the Colts, he had 9.5 sacks. So he's going to be a guy you can rely on to get at least 8 sacks for you, and that would be fine for the Chicago Bears. If we can get a guaranteed 8 sacks out of a player, even if he's not good at run defense, I'm okay with that, because the Bears currently do not have proven pass rushers on this team. So I'd be very, very happy to sign Yannick Ngakoue. He's also only 28 years old, so still relatively young. Okay, still on the right side of 30. So even if you want to do a 2-year deal, I think that would be fine. Maybe with incentives to make the contract higher if he actually does get sack production. But I think this will be a good addition for the Chicago Bears. Going to my next player now, my next free agent, a familiar face. Leonard Floyd is still a free agent, and he could be a good fit in Chicago right now. Even though he is getting older, he's 30 years old now. He's on the wrong side of 30, but he has been pretty productive every single year after he left Chicago. Okay, playing on, with the Rams, obviously playing with Aaron Donald, which did help his production. But last year, Aaron Donald missed many of the games due to injury. So last year, even without Aaron Donald, many games there, he still had 9 sacks on the year, a very productive year. And playing with Aaron Donald before that, he had about the same level of production, 9.5 sacks in 2021, 10.5 sacks in 2020. So a guy that's been super, super productive after he left the Chicago Bears, definitely developed into being that player that Ryan Pace thought he was getting, when he selected him back in 2016. And a guy that I still think he can fit a 4-3 defense, even though he's not played in a 4-3 defense in his career. He does have the length and the size to play in a 4-3 scheme. Okay, he's 6'6", weighs 240 pounds, and as we Bears fans know, he tested really well at the combine. So another RAS demon, a guy that polls will love because he's so damn athletic, and a guy that Eberflus will love as well because he's a better run defender than a Yannick Ngakoue is. Okay, he's actually a pretty nice run defender. He has been basically every year of his career. So I think that Leonard Floyd reunion in Chicago would make a lot of sense for both sides. And Leonard Floyd, you guys know, has also played really, really well against the Packers during his time with the Bears. So another guy that could help us finally beat the Green Bay Packers. Going to my next guy on the list then, Jadeveon Clowney, the former #1 overall pick from the Houston Texans. He's bounced around many teams during his career, has never truly lived up to the #1 overall pick expectations, but he still has been a pretty solid player in the NFL, even if he's never been truly a superstar. Okay, he has gone to 3 Pro Bowls in his career, and he's had some pretty productive years and some not so productive years, so it's kind of a gamble which version of Clowney you're getting. But if you get the good version, then he could be a very productive player for the Chicago Bears. I'll put his stats on the screen right now, but you guys can see he's had some 9+ sack seasons in the past. And even with the Browns, a year ago, before last year, he did have 9 sacks for the Browns. It was very, very productive. Now, last year, he fell off a little bit and was mostly a rotational guy. So, it is going to be kind of a gamble if you are bringing him here to Chicago to be a starter. But I think he could be an upgrade over what we have right now because he has produced before in his career. And he does have the athletic traits also that Matt Eberflus is going to love in this scheme. So he could be another, fantastic signing for the Chicago Bears. And then finally going to my last free agent target, Frank Clark of the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy that Ryan Poles already knows because he was with Kansas City when the Chiefs did acquire Frank Clark, so there's some familiarity there. And Frank Clark has been super, super productive with the Chiefs, mostly in the playoffs. In the regular season, he's not been as productive. So that's one area of concern because obviously the Bears do need help making the playoffs in the first place. Like, we cannot only have this guy playing really well in the playoffs because we have not made the playoffs since 2020, but still in the regular season, he still has been a decent player for the Chiefs. You know, he had 8 sacks in 2019, 6 after that, 4.5 after that, and then 5 last year. Nothing crazy, but the pressure numbers have been pretty decent. Okay, according to PFF, you know, in 2019, he had 47 pressures. In 2020, he had 44 pressures. In 2021, he had, let me pull it up, 46 pressures. So he has been a consistent, you know, 46, 47 pressures per year type of guy. So even if the production in the regular season is not, you know, fully been there, he still has been getting pressure on the quarterback, which would be important for a team in the Bears that could not get any pressure on the quarterback, let alone get sacks on the quarterback. So I think Frank Clark could be a decent fit here. He's played in a 4-3 scheme before. He's pretty decent against the run. He's not a great run defender, but probably a better run defender than Yannick Ngakoue. So, you know, a decent all-around guy that could be really good for us in the playoffs if we do make the playoffs, and a guy that could teach the young guys in Dominic Robinson and Travis Gibson, teach them how to succeed at the next level. So that could be another phenomenal option in free agency. And then finally, I want to go to my trade option, okay? And this is very unlikely, so I will not get your hopes up too high about this, but this is the NFL, and crazy things do happen every single year in the NFL. So why not trade for superstar pass rusher Chase Young of the Washington Commanders? The Commanders selected him at number 2 overall back in 2019, but unfortunately, he struggled to stay on the field. He's only started 26 games in 3 years. He suffered a pretty bad knee injury back in 2021, which also kept him out for most of 2022 as well. So he's basically been out of football for the most part for 2 years. I know he played some games last year, but has not played a full season since 2020 when he won Defensive Rookie of the Year and made the All-Pro team. So it is a big risk because he has injuries, and obviously Ryan Poles has steered clear of, you know, these injured guys for the most part, right? Like, he canceled the Larry Ogunjobi contract because Larry Ogunjobi failed his physical, but according to what I've seen online, it does seem like Chase Young is fully healthy right now, at least, you know, with information available to the public. I'm sure that Ryan Poles would ask for more physicals if he did trade for him, but the Commanders, you know, may be looking to move off of him because they already have so much money invested on their defensive line. They re-signed Deron Payne to a huge contract. They have Jonathan Allen there as well. They have Montez Sweat, who they have to re-sign too. So one of the guys on their D-line probably is going to be going, because I don't think it would make sense to invest that much money on the D-line, invest all your cap space only in D-line. And they did decline Chase Young's 5th-year option. So maybe there could be a slight possibility that he could be available for trade if the price is right. Now, what would the price be? I would think maybe a 2nd-round pick, maybe a 3rd-round pick. I'm not totally sure because the injuries do play into this, but when he's on the football field, guys, he's been one of the most dominant pass rushers in the NFL. Last time he played a full season in 2020, he was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL, just dominant against the run and against the pass. Has freakish athleticism, freakish bend, and he's only 24 years old. So even though he has struggled with injuries, he's still young enough where he could recover from those injuries fully and be the dominant player he was back in 2020. Also, he went to Ohio State, you know, a teammate of Justin Fields. They know each other. You know, Justin Fields and Chase Young actually did a commercial together back in 2021 with Chipotle, I believe. And Chase Young also took a picture with Devin Hester, you know, at the NFL draft. So there's been some like Bears connections popping up, random Bears connections that probably don't have anything to do with us trading for Chase Young. But man, it would be a dream for the Bears to get a superstar pass rusher of the caliber of Chase Young for a pretty, I don't want to say cheap price, but cheaper than it should be priced, because he has struggled with injuries as of late. So it could be a fantastic opportunity for the Bears to buy low on a fantastic player at a position of need that's only 24 years old, so he fits the timeline of the team as well. So there you have it, guys. Those are some of my favorite options at defensive end for the Chicago Bears that could be available potentially. You know, if the Bears want to sign any of these guys or trade for Chase Young, you know, that would be pretty fantastic. And, you know, the point I want to make in this video basically is that there's so many ways to still improve that position because there's so many guys still available, and there could be more available too after salary cap casualties. So Ryan Poles, he should be getting to work adding at least one more player at edge. I think I would be fine even if he only add one more guy, one more high level or at least adequate level starter, because that would give the Bears a pretty decent defense, I feel like, next year, if the secondary can, you know, turn into what we think it can be, and if the defensive line additions up front on the interior can hold up as well. But leave your comments down below, guys. As always, bear down.